few personnel questions just to confirm. Martell Irby, is he still with the program?
Yep, Martell's here.
Okay. Thomas Cole?
He's unavailable right now.
Patrick Selna?
Unavailable right now.
Okay, still with the program though?
Yep.
Okay. How different is it a process when you're installing a defense with a new defensive coordinator as opposed to having one from last season?
For what those guys did, because Brian was here, so I think it's a collaboration of all of those guys, kind of what Ken did, what Billy did in the NFL, and Ken in the NFL, and then Akaika up at Washington, and then putting it together, but understanding what our terminology is. So they may have called it quarters when they were in Chicago, but we call it something different, but it's still the same coverage. So they did a really good job in the month of February and March of collaborating and putting things together. So it's actually been pretty seamless so far. So, but there are some things that'll be different than last year. But I think they've added it in a way where I think our players understand it, because you're just teaching concepts.
Do the new coaches change your terminology? They bring in their own terminology?
Both. It's what's the best. We kind of sit down and say, hey, what's the best way to do it? It's no different than with Drev, with the O-line now is when we talk about some combinations or calls or things like that. He's called it this in the past, we called it this in the past. What's the best way moving forward? So some things you have changed, some things you keep the same.
Never had a few practices. What transfers have stood out? It seemed like the Murphys really made an impact.
The Murphys, I think all of the kids that showed up, especially when you think about it, the first day of school was Monday and the first practice was Tuesday. So the Murphys showed up. I think Aziz showed up. Carson Ryan's done a really, really nice job. Justin Martin's done a really, really nice job. Gary Smith has shown, that he can really be a stout kid on the inside. So I think all of those kids from the jump have just jumped right in, and they don't stand out. When sometimes you stand out in the wrong way because you're not doing the right thing. You're not sure where to go. I think they've picked up really quickly and kind of how we train and what we do, and been impressed with all of them so far.
Yeah, the young running backs, Tamarian, you have Deshaun. What do you see from them? And obviously, the two of them kind of might have to replace the production that Britton Brown had from last year.
Tamarian, who was the other one you asked about?
Brent Harden.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
TJ's, again, he got here Monday, so, but hasn't really looked out of place. There's sometimes he's really flashing. You kind of like, all right, there's a skill set there. There's an understanding of how to run, not forcing things, is letting the play develop. So he's got a good knack for how to be a running back. You obviously saw that on high school tape, but it translates to what we've done so far. So, from 3 training sessions in, I thought we were really high on TJ and what he brings to the table. So.
Do you think that you might want to try to mold those guys to be the Britton Brown, or do you change the offense?
No, I don't think you mold anybody. I don't think you mold anybody to be anybody. They just need to be the best versions of themselves. So Britton had a unique style that we loved, but that's Britton. So TJ's got to be TJ. No different than Zach is different than Britton. Keegan's different than Zach. They got to be what they are and what's in their body. You can't try to mold them into being something that they're not.
Lincoln Riley was saying on Saturday that he kind of admired you and looked up to you as a coach when he was just starting out as a coach.
That just means I'm old.
And you were at Oregon. What does that mean to hear from someone like him?
I got a lot of respect for Lincoln. I think he's a heck of a coach. I admire him. I admire what he did when he was a coordinator at East Carolina, and then as a coordinator at Oklahoma, and then as the head coach. He's made a major impact on college football. So that's the one thing about this league is there's good coaches everywhere. David Shaw, Kyle Whittingham, Lincoln. There's a bunch of really, really good coaches in this league, and you better be ready every single week. But I think Lincoln's a heck of a football coach.
Kaz Allen seems to continually keep stepping up, developing. What have you seen from him this spring, and does he fulfill kind of that Demetric Felton role from a couple of years ago for you?
Yeah, we don't have roles, so I hope 2 years from now you guys are like, who's going to fill the Kaz Allen role and what that becomes. So.
But you don't have roles, so I want to ask.
Yeah. So you can always ask. I'll never tell you what not to ask, but we don't look at it and say he fills this. I think you look at your skill set of what they have, and then how do we actuate what they do really, really well, and how do we put them in positions to do things really, really well. I think using Felt as a receiver out of the backfield was a huge mismatch for people. And if people wanted to play man and Felt was the one back, well, who's covering him? Mike linebacker? That's a mismatch. That's always been a mismatch. So, the one thing with Kaz, because he's been here for a while and he's got a great understanding, is he can play a lot of different positions. He can play outside receiver, he can play inside receiver, he can play running back. He's obviously a really good kick returner. We're looking at him now as a punt returner. Our job is to try to figure out as many different ways as we can get the ball in Kaz's hands because he's certainly one of our top playmakers.